Hello, ladies, gentlemen, people. Welcome, welcome, welcome. College Esports Insider. We are back. Been a little bit of a hiatus, and by a little bit I mean like months on end. I dropped 3 episodes and then I dipped. But we're back. We're better than ever. Gonna start doing these weekly. Week one back, we got the fighting games now person of Collegiate, spearheaded. Jason, Helen, Pause. How you doing, man?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Just coming off a cold. Starting the semester off right.
Hey, it's always you get they're all sick all the time, and it rubs off on you.
Dude, my brother-in-law and his kids, they got me. That's all I'm gonna say on that one. Oh man, but no, doing great. So, just to start off, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how'd you come up in esports? How'd you get in esports? Right? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I'm old. I'm probably older than most people that are gonna be watching this. In my late 30s, but I was gaming as a kid. Obviously, like I remember like the Game Boy, like I have the Game Boy Color days, all that cool stuff. And then I supposed to specifically remember my cousins dragging me along to like actual arcades. You can Google those if you need to know what those look like. Uh, but we of them playing like Tekken and just getting crazy on Tekken and thinking those were like the coolest people I've ever seen in my life because it was just like a bunch of grown dudes playing Tekken and yelling at each other. Now I know they're a bunch of dorks, but I'm a giant dork too, so it's all good. Then I get to high school, and in high school there was some teachers who in college used to do LAN parties, and they convinced the school to do a networking club. And originally it was supposed to be like the idea of like, oh, you're gonna learn computers and how to network computers. It was just a LAN. They just wanted to live their glory days with
Yeah.
all their students. So once a month we'd meet, and it would be like Counter Strike and Team Fortress and Age of Empires and just a bunch of people going nuts, and then people dragging in Xboxes and playing Halo. Flash forward, I go to the military, I go to college, all that cool stuff, and I become a teacher. And my first teaching job, the school says, "Hey, we have an entrepreneur class, and they really want to start an esports club. Would you be down to sponsor that?" And I was like, "Bet." So we ended up getting a pretty big grant from the U.S. Department of Ed, and this was back in like 2017, 18, and started running with high school esports, and that was my first entryway. And kind of caught the bug and realized that like as someone who's a teacher and educator, like I was connecting with kids and helping them along better doing esports is something I was more passionate about in the gaming world than talking about world history. So I ran with that, and I ended up being a head of esports at a university, Indiana University East. And then, as all things go, my wife, as most people that are in this industry know, that everyone makes more money than you, and my wife makes a lot more money than me. And so we moved, and I gave up my dream job. But then something always called back to me was every semester since 2018, I've been involved in esports in some fashion in high school or college. Kids always asked about fighting games, and always like, well, you can go play Smash. Like there's always Smash. Um, and so finally last year, actually just over a year ago, I kind of like someone put some on social media, and I said, screw it, let's build it. And we've just been building ever since to where we are now, where we're doing our signups for fall. And right now we're looking at 250 plus competitors from over 100 schools. So there's definitely we hit a niche that there's definitely students that wanted to find their own home within college esports, and I think we're doing our best to provide that. So that's my background, brother.
There you go. That's your spiel.
My
No,
elevator
but
speech.
hey, never gonna find a better one. No, but I really enjoy what you guys are doing. I think that fighting games has been such a like niche esport, so to speak, and like just gaming in general that seeing it like put on the collegiate world, I don't think many people saw that even happening to the scale that it has been up until you guys really came in. Most people usually look at your Rocket Leagues, Overwatch, Valorant, League of Legends. Those guys are usually Call of Duty sometimes in there too. And Smash has always kind of been the odd one out, in my opinion, when it came to the collegiate leagues, just because there wasn't real, like, besides Cruise, obviously there wasn't really like a good team format to follow. And so I think that a lot of people even looked at fighting games as the next step over that, as to how is that even being accomplished, and here you guys are accomplishing it and doing it right by
Yeah.
the people.
Well, I think a lot too is like it was a good timing on our behalf because like I think if we would have tried it like 2 or 3 years ago, we would have been really limited on the games that we could do because like there's something, and I might get yelled at from all the other esports people, but like when you're doing fighting games 1-on-1, like one lag spike can determine the entire match, right? Every time. Whereas like something like Valorant or Rocket League, like if one player has a lag spike, yes, it could have a huge impact, but more often than not, it's probably gonna be like, oh, I felt some lag, and then you're still playing, right? Um, and so like we had to kind of rely on the net codes for fighting games to be like really on point. And I think with this new generation of games, with like Street Fighter 6 and Mortal Kombat 1 and Tekken 8, and the Guilty Gear Strive's done pretty good at the last few years, that like you can have an almost flawless connection and really like compete, right? Which has allowed for online play to what college esports has been kind of accustomed to. And so I think that's had a big impact because even if you have Smash players, like when they play online, when they're always complaining about that lag, right? Because when they're 1-on-1, they're feeling it more than probably any other game. Whereas like Street Fighter, like you rarely feel it, right? Like Tampa Never
Right.
Sleeps, which is a huge organization. They do a tournament every night that's online, and they're always grinding away. So I think these new games have made it really accessible and can be where what we do could be a reality.
Have you seen pushback from like general like esports people? Because I remember one thing, like when I was at UNCC as a student leader, I was one of the people who brought in the fighting games as like a start point. And I remember we were a team of like 6 or 7 student leaders. I was the only one who wanted it. Like everybody else thought it was kind of pointless. And I pushed and I pushed and I pushed, and they got so tired of hearing me push that they just said, "Do what you want," and then that happened. But even like the Smash people, right? Getting them to compete online was also kind of like hell on
Yeah.
earth, to be honest with you, because like you said, the netcode thing, like I mean, they hated playing on Wi-Fi. They still do hate playing on Wi-Fi. And I still talk to some of those guys to this day, and it's like they're glad they get to compete against other schools, but man, do they hate it. So like, did you get any pushback from esports people at all when you got started in this?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a little bit ago about like so far everything's been so like team oriented, or even with Smash, it was like it like organized esports really gravitated like, well, let's do crews, right? Um, and I think some of it comes down to one, it's like fighting games are so have always just been 1-on-1. It's like me versus you, person versus person. If you lose, like there's no one to blame but yourself, right? Like you have to come to terms with that. Um, and so I think when you talk about like, hey, let's make it a team thing, there's a lot of pushback on that, obviously. And when you look at it from like a director standpoint, if you're looking at titles, right? Like if you're from a recruiting standpoint, you're looking at Valorant, you're like, okay, I can at least recruit 5 and I have a team. Or I can do 2 and I can have 2 teams or 3 and have like academy and all that cool stuff. Whereas like with the fighting games titles, like, oh, I can have 1 or 2, and you're not gonna like. There's a few things like Stream Team Battle, like they do a really cool thing where they have like a 5v5 with Street Fighter and Tekken, but like they do it as like a, hey, we're gonna do a couple week thing here and there. Like it wouldn't be sustainable. And if you come in our community and talk about like purely teams, you're not gonna find it. And I think what people are finding though is like we have schools like Humber College in Canada and like Southern Mississippi, like they're putting in like 10, 12 players, right? And some of the things they're finding that's fun is that like those players meet, right? They'll get in the same pool or something like that and they'll play each other. And we've had feedback where it's like our lab goes nuts because now you have this player versus this player. They're on stream, so their students are watching stream, they're watching the players, and it becomes a madhouse in that particular lab. And I think they're realizing like that's where the energy come from, and it's really harkening back to like those old like arcade days where like that's where the hype came from. That's where like those moments, and in reality, like they play each other all the time, but when it's actual for the competition, it kind of changes the vibe, right? So I that's when a lot of pushback. But as people see how it kind of plays out, I think they're kind of leaning into it a little more. And then the way our system's set up for CFGC is like we do an ELO base, and so you can bring in a team of 10 people, and they may play each other, but most likely they're going to be spread across those pools, and so they're going to be competing in their own space against other schools at their own like ELO level, and then maybe fight up to get to where someone else is, or maybe they have a bad week and drop down, and it lets you have those like cool moments where it's school versus school.
Mhm.
So I think we're finding ways that where you can leaders can recruit multiple, and it's not just like, oh, I can just put one in. So
Something I noticed about you guys posted a heat map, so to speak, of states that you guys are represented in. Something I noticed, man, the East Coast is riding heavy. I mean, you
oh
go up and down, up and down the
yeah,
East Coast. I see the Midwest lacking a little bit there too, and usually it's the complete opposite in esports, man. Usually the Midwest is like all in there for collegiate, and East Coast is usually the one that's trailing behind. I mean, what do you think about that?
I man, there's a couple things. One, first of all, like I'm from Indiana, like I'm a Hoosier to my heart. I don't live there right now because I said like I married up, so I follow my wife around like a puppy. But like, um, if you look at that heat map, like the whole Midwest has at least a school in each state except Indiana, and I was like, y'all are hurting me. That's where my whole network is. None of y'all can come in and find somebody. But I think what it's really showing on that heat map is if you look at like so we have 100 plus schools, and like there's a ton of schools in Virginia. There's multiple in Georgia. There's multiple like as you move to Maryland, I think it's got two or three.
Mhm,
South Carolina came hot with Smith University. Like there is a ton right there, and I think it's because like when you get to those population bases, they're still locals, right? They're still like people that get together and play, and now they're seeing there's an option to like go out online and compete against everyone else in the United States and represent their school. Um, so I think it's where you find those population centers is where you're going to find that, and then when you get in the Midwest, like Indiana, for example, like there's a somewhat of a smash scene. There's a little bit like around where you get to Iowa, like where I'm at now, is like I'm in Des Moines. We have a decent population, but the local scene's just not quite there yet, right? Like I think
mhm.
they were talking about yesterday, they had 25 players, which is awesome. That's 25 people getting together and playing a game in person. But if you think of like how many college teams are represented in that, whereas if you go to like Iowa City, where Iowa's at, like the University of Iowa,
Mhm.
like we have multiple players from there because they have a budgeting scene, and those players like when they come in, they find their local, and then they find us. So I think that's where that East Coast is just there's so many freaking people out there. So
That is, bro. That population density is crazy. No, that's cool though. What about some of those Canadian schools? Like, or I remember you guys had a placement map last year. I remember St. Clair was like in there deep. I think it was St.
for
Clair.
Mortal Kombat,
Yes,
yeah,
bro, they were
man.
in there deep.
I don't know, like I'm so confused because like Mortal Kombat's our lowest number game, and like I get it, like especially on the collegiate side, like no one like not many schools want like a fatality of like someone getting their spine ripped out with like the Ohio State logo on it or something. Like I totally understand that. And then just like of the four games that we do, like that's probably like the one that has the lowest like hype about it, which is fine. But for some reason, St. Clair came out and just said like, "Hey, we have all of Mortal Kombat kids in the world here." Um, but there's some other ones that are popping up, like for example, like Humber, which is Bernard.
Mhm,
Maybe he was the former like number one in Canada in like Smash Melee and has played like every fighting game ever. And he has his team and he has his club, and all the fighting games students were in the club, and he told them like, "Hey, if you show out, we'll pull you over to the team." And so now between the team and the club, like they have 12 people signed up with us,
mhm,
and he's doing crazy stuff. Like he's sending players to like Combo Breaker in Chicago, which is a huge fighting games thing. Um, and then we have some other ones that are just spread out through Canada, like Kiana, which is like way north. Like that place
mhm,
is way up there. Some over on the West Coast, and I think part of it is like we're growing in Canada just because like Canada's way more organized than the U.S. is. Like if you look at the US, like we have NACE, NECC,
Mm,
CFGC, ECAG, CEC, like it's all over the place. Whereas in Canada, like those schools compete, right? But they all kind of are falling under like Esports Canada, which is like government focused. They're setting their standards,
mm.
and so I think we're slowly spreading throughout there as more schools compete. But yeah, Canada's coming in strong. And they love representing Canada. They love it.
Have you seen some of like the territories come up at all?
Like way up north? No, I don't think we have anything there yet.
No,
Right
I'm talking
now,
about
we
even
just have
like
the
down south. I mean, like the Virgin Islands, I think count in there. Puerto Rico,
oh,
I like.
um,
Have you seen any of those guys come in?
no, like the one that we keep trying to work with a little bit is Guam, like way out in the Pacific, right? It's just the net code's awesome, but I think when we get to a size where we can institute like regions, they
Mhm,
would be fine because then they compete like East Coast, I mean West Coast a little bit, and the same like when you like Virgin Islands or Puerto Rico, that kind of stuff. Like I think Puerto Rico would be fine in general, but the rest I think would be good when we get to a size we have regions. But right now it's just a little bit further out because we
mhm,
also like, for example, we have Alaska, and so just the way we compete nationwide across U.S. and Canada and Alaska
mhm.
is like we're already going to potentially have like Alaska facing like Central Florida. So I'm curious on how that. I hope that net code's that strong.
Ooh.
So and then we had someone reach out. They were a college student in Germany, and I was like, buddy, I don't
Interesting.
think that one's going to work out at all. But feel free to stay in the
No.
cord.
UK college esports I find very interesting. I met the guys from University of Warwick a couple years ago, and they have a cool thing going on, but um, they're interesting. Not in a bad way interesting, just like I can't even begin to understand interesting.
Yeah.
Oh man. So when you have a director come at you and ask about CFGC, like how do you show them the value of like recruiting for this thing? Because some people get it, some people don't. I think that's kind of the age old argument with esports in general, to be honest. But
Right.
uh, how do you tell a director this is why you should recruit for this thing and this is why it matters?
Well, I think the easiest pitch ever is one of the things that that's always sought out, and I faced this when I was a director too. Is well, I'll talk about that real quick. So when I was a director, my school, for whatever reason, I think it was like a chancellor had a son that played League of Legends. They really, really, really wanted to be a League of Legends school, and I'm like, buddy, that's just not going to happen because it was a public school and we had a region we recruited from, and it was a very poor region, and I'm like, most of these kids are existing on the sticks, so like whatever the games we do, we're gonna have that because in that region of like Eastern Indiana, which like no one knows what's there, right? No one who knows what's in Eastern Indiana. Um, but like those kids, they're type of parents. I can use myself. 'Cause that's where I grew up. Is when I wanted like to do something gaming when I was a kid. Like my mom wasn't going to go out and be like, oh, let's go to whatever and find this gaming PC that's going to be $1,500. It was I got I got a Nintendo from sorry, the first one I got on my own that wasn't a hand me down from my cousins was I got a Nintendo 64 from a pawn shop. Like that was it, right?
Mhm.
And there was no box. It was just they set it in front of me for it was like my birthday or something, and I didn't care. I was hype. I was in like fifth grade or something. But a lot of those kids exist in the same way. Like the school I was at, for example, the director is there now, Andy, his Smash team, he has two players on his Smash team that don't even have their own Switch just because like they can't afford it. Their
Right.
family can't afford it. And so he's been on the grind of like going to pawn shops and stuff like that and looking for a Switch so they can play Smash when the lab is closed and trying
Mhm.
to get sponsors to buy them a Switch. And so that those are the type of kids that like usually end up playing fighting games because they can play it right. They can get the used PlayStation, they can get an Xbox or whatever, and they end up gravitating towards fighting games because it's a more accessible option. And so when you get into fighting games, you find that it's way more diverse, right? And so when I was recruiting, it was easy to find, and I'm gonna be pretty blunt here. It's like if you look at most teams, you're looking like Rocket League and League of Legends and those kind of games. Like you're gonna find a lot of white kids and probably Asian kids, right? Whereas like each fighting game kind of has its own community that's kind of built up. Like if you play Guilty Gear Strive, like you're gonna come across a lot of trans kids. Like that's the game they gravitate towards, right? If you play Tekken, you're probably gonna come along around black kids, right? They have because that's where their communities form. You gravitate towards what you know and you're comfortable with.
Mhm.
And so when you're looking at like, hey, I need to make my space more diverse as far as like a program goes, like fighting games is your easiest and best way to do that, right? Because you're gonna find those kids all across the board that are only going to strengthen your program by being there. So that's usually my first pitch is like, hey, if you're looking for those type of kids that really need this opportunity, you're going to find them in fighting games because they're there, right? Um, and then the other one is like, just from a recruiting standpoint, like how many Rocket League teams can one school have, right? Like how many League of Legends teams can one school have when you're coming like you're running out of colors to name your team, but you still have a recruiting thing, right? I remember when I was recruiting that, it was like, you got to find us 20 a year at least. Well, now you have 4 or 5 more titles now you can recruit for, right? And you have a home for them. And that's one of the things the CFGC was always trying to like, how do we, how do we build this and we do it in a sustainable way so that way we know in 4 or 5 years we'll still be here, right? And it's one of the reasons we haven't taken like outside investment or anything like that, and we're running things on a shoestring budget is because like we're looking for sustainability over time because we want directors to know that like if I recruit a student for Street Fighter 6, I know while they're in school they'll have a place. And so those are usually my pitches. I'm like, here's why you should do fighting games. And also just like they're on your campus already. Like if you look at Boise State, like they saw it like, hey, Street Fighter's becoming a thing. They're starting to get some college investment from Capcom. This is something we need to get in on. And they just did a tryout on campus and had a ton of kids show up and grind it out, and there they are. So yeah, they're already there. So it's a easy, quick way to build your program and to add a lot of like diverse voices that need to be heard within your program. It's all right there waiting for
That was beautiful. No, man, for real, it was. I think I didn't even think about that, to be honest with you. Like, I remember I was trying, not trying very successfully, but trying to find fighting games people. I didn't really think of that angle of it. Of like, this is who should be put in there. I think I was just trying to look at whatever player I could find.
you. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
No, and it's super funny because like you those kids like again you gravitate towards your community and what you're comfortable with, and those kids just they found theirs, right? And that's what they gravitate towards. And I was joking with a friend of mine because he runs a program and he has multiple trans students, and where he's at, like it's not very welcoming to them, right? But they feel welcome at the school and in his lab. And so he's like, man, I wish I had a place that I could be comfortable taking him. I was like, take him to any fighting games thing, right? They're gonna find their community. They're gonna find their IRL community. And it's even funny, like as our kids play, like because fighting games are so different from like a Rocket League. Like I've been in other discords, and it's not a knock on them because they look at it purely from a competitive standpoint. You'll see like if you go into another league's Discord, you'll see like, hey, we're playing 8. Yeah, we're playing at 8. Okay, we'll see you at 8. You're hosting, great, right? But if you come into like a fighting games Discord, the focus is like you hear the FGC is that C is the community, and like we have so many people that have become friends or become homies, or we have community college students who are now looking at like, hey, I can go on to get my actual bachelor's degree because I can go down the road or to this other state where I have like 6 friends already, right?
right.
And so you're seeing a lot of growth and a lot of chance for them to do things, and it's I don't know, man. It's just really cool to see from our standpoint to see an actual community exist versus just a group of competitors in the same space.
Yeah. I mean, the community aspect of it, I think, was one of the reasons why I always loved it. You always get a group of people, everybody knows each other, everybody's cool with each other, they're just there to play a game, have fun, compete. But I think that's something that sometimes a lot of people miss when it comes to competition and gaming. It's really the community aspect of it, and the fact that these kids should be in there having fun, having a great time, making this connection during the last time of a lifetime, and then just going on from there and building on that.
Right.
Just something that I've always like struggled with like getting, especially like being a Converse, which is like notorious has been like in that top 20, top 30 like school like esports schools, is we have a lot of kids coming in to like be esports pros because they want to get to that pro level.
Right.
And one of my things when I'm talking to them and having these recruit calls is, well, what else? Like, as a person, who are you? Like,
Yeah.
what do you want to get out of college? What's the experience that you want out of college? And they don't have that answer. They don't know it themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I really appreciate about fighting games. Has been like a lot of those people know that they're there to have fun. They're there to build their community. They're also there to compete at the same time. But like they have a little bit of everything, and with that comes kind of like that good aspect of that feel good community that you can get. And that's also how you build sustainability too.
Yeah. One thing I noticed that's kind of funny is like, as long as the esports goes, like you always have a lot that are like computer minded, right? They're computer science or IT, that sort of thing. It's like there's been like a little like I kind of just noticed it lately. Is a lot of students that are computer science majors
Mhm.
who are like replaying each other, or they talk trash to each other, or they have fun, or whatever. And I don't think they realize it right now, but like they're all from different schools across the country, but they're developing their professional network already, right?
Mhm.
Because as they graduate and they're friends and they follow each other on social media, and as they get out to the world and be like, hey, I'm going to start hunting for a job, is they're going to start seeing they know a lot more people in their professional community than they realized they did because they're doing this esports thing, right? And I think you get that along across the board in a lot of places in esports that I don't think a lot of them realize quite yet. But once they get to, they're going to be like, oh, I got a job at this place because I know this dude that I played 7 states away in Guilty Gear
Exactly.
Strive. And yeah, so I'm excited for that era of esports to come around when they realize there's more to it than just playing their fighting game or their little car
Mm.
soccer game. Right? So,
So with well, kind of switching gears a little bit. So CFGC, you guys are coming up to a new season. Talk to me about it. Like, well, what games are we looking at? What's the season format going to be for some of these games? What are we expecting with streams? I think you guys had a big announcement about streams recently, right?
yeah, a couple. So we first of all, our format's going to be we played around with a few different ones, so I think we're kind of onto something now that works great for us and for our competitors. And so Dr. Curtis Holman, he's at St. Cloud. My man has his real doctorate is in something like international trade or something. I don't know. I just butchered it. That's not what it is, but it's something like that. Supply chain stuff. But he
Hmm.
did his doctoral thesis in like tech and subgame theory and analytics. So like the dude is a literal like doctor of fighting games and Tekken. And so this is like something that he really dials in of like what's the ideal fighting games format look like. And so he developed our ELO system, which is like everyone's pretty familiar with, your right. And so what he does is our players when they come in, they get put. Everyone has 1,000 base elo. You get put into random pools the first 3 weeks, and then you kind of start to like fill out. Like you'll play your 2 or 3 matches a week. We do what we like a best of five, right? And so what it is that so you'll win 3-0, but you'll still play the next 2 matches because all that goes to your elo, right? Because we want the finest elo that we can get to put you in the exact spot you need to be. And what that does is as the season goes along and we get towards the end, is that players are really finding that they're in the elo and in the pools they need to be in. And so what that allows is like if you're new to the game, you just picked it up over the summer versus you've been killing it for 5 years now, you're on like your fourth or third different Street Fighter, like you'll find a competitive area where you're supposed to be. And so when you get to like our poll 1, 2, and 3, those are absolute killers. Those are guys that are like they can join the big tournaments and win money and do all kinds of cool stuff, right? You get down to the mid range, it's those kids that like, hey, I'm really here for my major. I'm doing computer science and my life is taken up or engineering or whatever, but I like to play. And then you get down towards the bottom pools, you have those kids that are like, hey, I'm picking this up. But the way we do it is a snake, kind of like a Premier League type thing, whereas, hey, you're in this pool, you went up, so we're going to bump you up one pool, see how you do. Okay, you survived there. That's probably where you need to be. Or you got dropped down one and you crushed everybody. Let's pull you back up. Um, and so that way, like you truly find where you should be, and it allows all players to find a competitive area. Like the poor players that aren't that good in that first 3 weeks just get smacked around a bunch, right? But then once we get into our main season, they have their elo. Then they're like, oh, I won a game. This is an awesome feeling. I kind of want to grind this some more, right? I kind of want to stay on this. And so you find a home with it. And that works across all 4 titles. So we do Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8, Guilty Gear Strive, and Mortal Kombat 1. And so they play their pools, 2 or 3 players a night, kind of like round robinish, and then they get their elo, and then next week they find out what pool they're in and who they'll be playing, and it kind of goes along that way for the rest of our season. Now, as far as streaming goes, last year it was done primarily right here on my computer because of the most of us. I had the computer that could do it. This year we're running into something cool where we have a partner coming in, a Kick Punch Block, to where they'll be actually hosting it from what they do and putting all the magic that goes into it. And they were telling me about VMix, which is new to me. So like they'll be running and producing the streams from then on, and then our casters and stuff like that will go through their system. So it'll look a lot prettier. It'll be a lot smoother. It'll be a lot better, which is exciting to see because we want to show growth, and it's good for them too because they operate a lot within the fighting game space, anyways. And so this is a way where they can like further market and promote themselves to show the work that they do. So it's really cool. And then for Tekken and Street Fighter, we'll actually finish the season. Our finals will be hosted on TNS, which is Tampa Never Sleeps. And there's my cat in every stream I'm on. She comes by. But so they'll host on that, and that'll bring a lot of eyes within the FGC world to us. And then we have some really good casters anyways, like Beautiful Crow and Fake Bruno. Like those dudes do awesome, and Azurvok, and then we have a ton of students who are going to be casting as well. And then we have our ambassador, St. Cola, which that dude, the voice of Midwest, like he's awesome. So he'll be preaching our gospel a lot, and then the students are hyped because FGC students know who that is, right? They know who these people are, and so they're hyped to have like a clip or their match on YouTube with St. Cola casting it, right, and with a professional actual production on it. So that'll be cool to see. So we're excited about all those, and then obviously Street Fighter, we're a partner conference with Esports U and CECC. So our winners, I think we'll have 1 or 2 bids. It's not confirmed yet. They'll get a chance to earn their way to May Madness for CECC, and then we'll also have an HBCU bid for Street Fighter as well, which we'll do a separate bracket at the end to where HBCU students can play our normal bracket and earn their way through that way as well. But then just because of some of the transgressions they've had in history, right? Like we want to give them their own brackets that way you can make sure we get their representation on that main stage as well. So it'll we got a lot of cool stuff this season. A lot of our competitions rolling along. We'll fine tune that brackets on how they look for us, and then our stream will look a lot fancier than just a dude in his basement. So.
Hey man, I'm excited to see it all. Now going into the future, what's on your wish list? Now, it doesn't have to be necessarily things, and if there's something in there that may be happening, don't leak it. Don't leave that for you. But
Right.
what's on your wish list of CFGC? Like if you could, in the perfect world, how's this thing growing? How's this thing evolving?
Yeah, well, obviously the first one is I've said it from the start is I will sell CFGC soul in a heartbeat for a energy drink mini fridge back here. But beyond that, there's a couple things I would like to see. One is right now we don't charge anything because we don't feel comfortable doing it yet because we a lot of our students are running solo, right? And so charging them some of the stuff that we would need to charge just doesn't feel quite comfortable yet, but we'll get there. And then part of it is just keep finding good partners so that way we can keep growing, right? My dream would be right now we don't do a finals in person, and that's kind of the dream is they find we don't want to do it on our own because we want to be a part of the broader either college esports world or FGC world, preferably in the FGC world side. So we would like to hopefully get somewhere like our players are getting the chance to go to like Evo or Combo Breaker or something like that, to where they compete on one of those stages. So that's something we're working towards that we hope can make happen in the next year or two. And then just getting to a point too where like we can, better pay people that are putting in all their time into this. Like people seem to think, and I get why, like it's me and Albie, right? But like we have an awesome advisory board like you, my friends. We have a ton of like students that put their time into this as well, and we have pool captains who are grinding out. And they get paid whatever I can make, like substitute teaching, right, or grinding on the side. And so I'd like to get to a point to where like they're adequately paid. That's probably my number one, honestly. But yeah, that's kind of where I see it's just more growth, slow, steady, sustainable growth, and get to a place where we can pay people and then get these students into some of the cool situations like where they can be on these main stages getting the love they deserve. So
Good to see the fact that you guys are in here for the long run. You guys are in here to make it sustainable, and at the end of that, it's a love for the game and the love for the students and trying to get them a place to be, right?
yeah, I mean that was the spark of all this is I just got tired of saying no to kids that wanted to play the games they wanted to play. And I was like, screw it, let's build something. And I remember when we first started too, there was talks of like, oh, well, like we can do this and take this money and do all that. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like we don't have a plan right now on how to make money. So if we take money in, people are gonna want the money back. And we don't have that. So no, we'll slow grind it and sweat equity it and make sure we're here for a long time versus owing someone money in the short time. So we'll
Right.
see. We'll keep growing. We'll keep doing our thing. I think one of the biggest things is like we have our community, right? And our players really lean into that. And so
Hmm.
I always hear talks of like, oh, these people are adding this game. I'm like, good. I want them to. I want everyone to have it. So that way when players go there, they can see that we do it better. That's where my ego comes out is I'm very confident on what Albie has built as a thing and what our advisory board has helped us grind into, what our staff and students do, and the community our players have just developed that like we're getting better at this than anyone else on the college side, right? So that's where my ego
You guys
comes
are
out.
doing
Otherwise,
great, man. And I mean that
yeah,
advisory board's great. Shout out to Wim Stocks, man. I love Wim. That's the first time I've ever like actually cutting in the call with Wim was in one of these advisory board meetings, man. And he's an electric guy, but he's a great guy. I mean, he's got a real passion for this thing, and I also saw Wim out
that
on like LinkedIn and Twitter and all that stuff. Beginning to actually
yeah,
hear him speak, man, I was like, well, wow.
that dude, he's been huge for us. Like we apparently like the same time we were starting, Street Fighter was like, hey, we want to get into the college space because most fighting games have an older player base, right? If you look at the
Mm,
pros, they're all in their 30s and stuff. Or if you look at like
yep.
Rocket League, they're all like 9. And so when you get to so they all these developers like Capcom and all that, they see like we need to de-age our player base if we still want to have a player base. And so they were looking at Collegiate and they looked to Wim because Wim had worked with them in like Street Fighter 4 and stuff like that. And so we and here we popped up and he was like, hey, we need to work together. And I'm like, who is this dude? And I looked him up. I'm like, yeah, man, we need to work together. Because Wim Stocks is crazy. That dude, I uh I texted him one day, like just in the afternoon, just to ask him a question. And he was like, oh hey Jason, it's 3 a.m. here in Dubai, so I'll have to get back to you in the morning. I'm like, why are you texting me? You could have just
Right.
done it when you woke up, brother. And why are you in Dubai? And then I texted him like 4 days later, and he was like, "Oh, hey, Jason, I'm wearing the CFGC shirt at GamesCon in Hollywood." And I'm like, "What does this dude do, man?" But yeah, he's a character, bro. Like I don't,
It's
he's
crazy.
crazy.
No, I heard about
But
him one time at the awards. I think in like 2022. I heard about first time I ever saw him in person was at the awards the next year in 2023. And I kept hearing about him. I kept hearing about this energetic Wim Stocks dude that nobody ever gets to
yeah,
meet, but everybody knows about. I actually got in a call with him for CFGC advisory. I'm like, wow,
yeah,
this dude's great. No,
yeah,
but
he's
he's
cool. Yeah. For those who don't know, he's the one that kind of started Star League and then eventually sold it to like for it to become Star League. And so he's kind of got some grandfather energy when it comes to college esports, but he's all the time and stuff, dude. Like he was doing something for Fortnite one day, and now he's working on something for like North Carolina esports. I don't. He's always doing something, dude. I don't. I guess just to be
North
like an old boomer dude with
Carolina's
a ton of money that's likes gaming. So
North
one of the
Carolina's
biggest
always doing
lessons I
something,
learned.
dude.
One of the biggest lessons I learned from him is that when I started doing this, and we were all like, "Hey, Jason, you'll kind of be like the business head of this," and I was like, bro, I'm a teacher. Like what? I don't. Well, okay. One of the things that kind of kept coming to my head is like, all right, so how do I talk to these people? Like, can like I talk normal? Should I try to sign professional? Like, what do I do? And women I connected on LinkedIn, and he had posted someone had posted something, and then some other like rich dude that's high up in some company replied amaze balls, and Wim said absolutely, and I was like, okay, I can say what I want.
Yup.
Like these dudes are saying that stuff. Like I'll just be me. It'll be fine. But yeah, so it's been a crazy journey getting on the league side of things.
Yeah, but you guys are doing it. And energy drink companies give this man a fridge, please. When someone finds
One
this, he needs a fridge. Stat.
someday it'll happen. It'll happen. Everyone's always like joking about like because there's people that are in my position in different leagues who are making like 60, 80, 90K. And I'm like, bro, I just want a fridge, man. That's it.
We were at a program retreat for Converse, and one of the students said, "Give me a Red Bull fridge, please." And I'm like, "Hey, you gonna show up to the event so that I can have the numbers so you get a Red Bull fridge?" And he just kind of looked at me with like wide eyes, like,
Right. Yeah, you gotta have something. Gotta have something to trade off on it. But
"That's how it goes." So, where can people find CFGC? Where can people find you?
yeah, so CFGC, it's literally just CFGC on everything. I think the Twitter is CFGC underscore GG, the website CFGC.gg, the YouTube's the same, CFGC underscore GG, the same as Twitch. I said most of our production is going to be on Twitch, and then we'll upload it on YouTube. For me, I'm hell on pause on everything. Like if there's a social thing that it's out there, I probably have it, or I've at least claimed the name. So I'm out there. So unless it's Epic Games and I'm heck on pause, because I had hell on pause for 7 years, and then out of the blue they said hell was a bad word, so they made me change it to heck on pause.
Epic Games does as
So
Epic Games pleases, I guess.
it was a whole mess. I was like, it's been like 7 years, bro. And I was like, I'm gonna start
Yup.
screenshotting some of the names I see, and you tell me what's worse. But
All right, man. Well, thank you everybody who tuned in for this one. Look out for next week. Make sure you go check out CFGC and check out what Jason has going on, some amazing stuff as we get started into the season.
yeah.
But yeah, peace.